Setbacks are temporary, but comebacks, they are legendary. Welcome back to the PSI Effect, where we pause, shift, and ignite purpose that speaks louder than your past. This is Nuge, and together with Frankie, we're your hosts in this space, and your comeback starts now.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the PSI Effect podcast. In this episode, we continue our conversation with Master Sergeant, retired Bettina J. Sellers and former Staff Sergeant Alexis Sellers, both of the United States Air Force and an amazing mother-daughter duo. Now, if you missed part one of this conversation, you really missed out. So make sure you go back and catch episode 11 from last week before you dive into this one. And with that, please enjoy part two of our celebration of Veterans Day with Bettina and Alexis.
Yeah,
Alexis.
Go ahead, Frankie.
Let me jump in real quick. So Alexis, your mom just mentioned that aha moment when she had this realization that there was so much more to you that you brought to the table. When was the aha moment for you when you made that self-realization?
Wow. My aha moment probably came much later because I don't think that at that time I was thinking about the things that she thought of me. It was probably when I moved out of the dorms and started paying rent and everything on my own, like really being a true adult. I mean, I was an adult at 18, but it probably took a couple years of actually going and being about my business, that it was aha for me. And I'm not even going to lie. It might even come even later than that. I just purchased my first home in the last year in 2024. And that was a really big moment. Like, I'm doing this thing.
Yeah, paying them bills kind of wake you up, doesn't it?
And sometimes I'll take me back when I don't have any bills. I think we all have that moment.
So we know that both of you have gone on and graduated college, right? You both have gotten degrees from college, and so how did that expand or challenge your worldview after leaving the Air Force? I'll let you go first, Alexis, but I do want to hear from you as well, Bettina.
Well, first of all, it was one of those things that I didn't see an end in sight. I probably took a little longer to complete my undergrad than most people. Just like I said, I started because my friends made it look cool, and then I took breaks in between. But towards the end, when I really began to focus, I think that's when I really discovered with myself that I can do hard things. At the time, I was taking a full load. So even though I was in accelerated courses, I was in, I guess what you say, a full semester like traditional students. I was taking maybe 3 or 4 classes at a time. Night classes, I was working full time. And I also was part-time in the reserves. And that was, for me, mentally, that was rough to get through. Like I said, I discovered with myself that I could do hard things. So the way that going to school challenged me, again, earlier I spoke about how math has always been challenging for me. And I went after an accounting degree. It helped me to focus. I was very motivated by excelling and getting A's and B's. And it was just kind of proving to myself that maybe I didn't put my all into it in high school, just trying to learn everything. I think it was a little more motivation. Even though the Veterans Administration was paying for me to go to school, I knew that if I didn't pass, I had to pay out of pocket. So there was some motivation on that, like, hey, I don't want to pay. Then also, one of the things that really got me through is my ancestors fought for my right to be able to have a higher education. And so that's kind of how my worldview changed. Whereas instead of just going because it looks cool, I have a purpose in what I'm trying to achieve. And then at the time I wasn't a mother, but I did want to be able to show that if I did have children in the future, that you can complete something. You can, and again, you can do hard things.
It's awesome that you say that. I think sometimes that we lose sight of the sacrifice that those who went before us made in order for us to be able to, do the things in life that we've been able to do.
Mhm.
And, in a lot of cases, those have been huge sacrifices. Just in our personal space, with our parents and our grandparents, but also from a culture standpoint. And I'm glad that you recognize that, or you mentioned that in this space, because I know that that's something that we sometimes lose sight of, or even take for granted
Hmm.
uh, in certain instances. I appreciate you bringing
Yeah,
that up. That was good.
thank you.
All
So
right.
for me, I'll rewind the tape a little bit. My worldview changed when I realized how important the job that I was doing in the Air Force. Um, I realized that it wasn't just Bettina from Newport News, Virginia, being in the Air Force. I'm literally protecting this. If I don't burn these keys and codes when we go out to reset these alarms, someone could get their hands on them. If I don't do that properly, if I'm an expert marksman in 3 different weapons, and if I'm not the best shot out here, if something happens and I have to fire this weapon, if I'm not the best shot and I have to shoot 3, 4, or 5 times to get you, that means you can actually get to me or to uh, whatever asset that I'm protecting or whatever property I'm protecting or whatever multi-million-dollar equipment I'm protecting. You have the opportunity to get to it. So I always thought like that. I didn't just think I want to be the best shot out here. I thought when I was in the prone position, in the standing position, when I was firing the weapons, I always thought if you bob and weave, I want to be able to get you. So I needed to know how to be the best shot out there. And that was my thought. It wasn't even it changed my worldview. Like I have to be able to protect this stuff. And that's what changed for me. And to take it a little further, when I got out of the Air Force, I started going to Grambling State University when I was at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, in Shreveport, Louisiana. I started attending Grambling State University, and when I PCS'd, meaning a permanent change of station, when I moved to Northern Virginia from Louisiana, I was frustrated because I wanted to graduate from an HBCU, and Grambling State University was going to be it for me. I was going to get my criminal justice degree from there, and it was a big deal. And the band was bumping. Side note. However, and when I got to Northern Virginia and I was stationed at Bowling Air Force Base, I realized I wouldn't be able to go to Howard because I wanted to go to Howard University, and I wouldn't be able to because it clashed with my time schedule at work. So it wasn't a lot of being able to take a lot of evening classes and things like that. I had to find another school. And so I kind of rebelled. I rebelled and didn't hurt anybody but myself, so to speak, because I was like, well, bump it. If I can't go to Howard, I don't want to, I'm not going to go to school here. And then I retired and realized that the Air Force was going to take care. I mean, the Veterans Administration was going to pay for me to go to school and give me a stipend. I said, well, okay. It doesn't have to be an HBCU. We need to get a stipend. Let's just go back to school. Why don't we? And because of who I am, if I'm going to do it, I want to be the best at it. And I decided that I was going to give 100% of every single thing. I was going to try to be at the top of my class. And so when it came time to graduate, real story, when it came time for Alexis and I to graduate, we had to order our cap and gown and our tassels and all of that. And we had our military tassels. And Alexis saw my tassels and she said, "Oh, Mom, you have the wrong tassel. They gave you the wrong tassel." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. This is an honors tassel." She thought I had the wrong tassel. She had the wrong tassel. She needed the tassel that I had. Okay. But it was really, really cool when we graduated because with her name being Alexis and mine being Bettina, she graduated and she walked to the end of the stage and she waited for them to call my name. And then we walked down together. And, the family was there, my mom, dad, all the family was there. So that was a very, very cool thing for us to actually do together and actually support each other as we did it because she had a little brother at the time who was now 18 and she took care of him when I did classes. We actually looked at our classes to determine which classes we were going to take and what was going to work for us to be able to drop him off. Okay, I'm gonna have to take this semester. Can you take him? Okay, well I'll be, and I would, because she worked at the school, I would bring him to school and go to class and he would sit and wait for her to get off and then she would take him home. So it was absolutely a team effort.
Yeah, mother-daughter dynamic duo for sure.
For sure, right?
To help each other out in that way. Yeah, Wonder Twin powers activate. But so I want to challenge you to a visualization exercise. So you collaborated on this endeavor, to get a higher education. What do you think it would have been like serving together in the Air Force if there wasn't this 20-year gap? What would it have been like for the two of you to serve together?
Oh, that would have been interesting. Me personally, I don't think it would have worked very well because she's my mama and she gives me orders at home. And if she was giving me orders at work and I didn't want to follow them or I didn't follow them, I just didn't need that in my life. So it's kind of good that we didn't serve necessarily side by side. But fun fact, we did serve for a little less than a year together in the same Air Force when there was a little overlap before she retired.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting because I think it would have been most interesting for me because I would have, after watching her graduate from basic training and seeing her leadership skills, it would have been some adjusting for me to go from her being my daughter and me being, like she said, giving orders, so to speak, but giving orders at home, but realizing that she's a grown woman, a capable adult. And she was capable and she was able to graduate from basic training and not just graduate, but be a leader. It would have taken probably some people that know me well to say, back up off of her, leave her alone. She can do this. And backing up and really knowing that she could and not having some sidebar conversation, because I tend to have sidebar conversation. So it would have been interesting. I feel like I would have done it because I had enough people around me. I didn't have around me what I say, and this might be a little morbid. I didn't have the Whitney and Michael people around me, the people that said yes because they needed to say yes and they thought they should say yes. I had people around me that would tell me to sit your behind down and cut it out. Just stop. Whether it was my best friend Deb or whoever it was, just like leave her alone, let her go, stop doing that. So I'm lucky. I'm blessed that I have people around me that aren't yes people, that don't mind telling me things that are going to make me roll my eyes, however, make me think that, yeah, they're right and I need to stop. So that was an interesting exercise because that could have been very interesting. I don't know if she's even run into people that have asked her if so and so was her mom. I don't know. I mean, I don't think where she's ever been stationed.
I've not run into anybody. However, I did have a command chief who was stationed with you. But he didn't ask. Somehow we just figured it out. I don't know how we came to that conclusion, but
oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've explored your journey and we talked about change. We talked about discovery. So now let's talk a little bit about purpose and what continues to ignite you today. So I would like to ask both of you, what does empowerment look like for you now as women, as veterans, and as leaders?
I'll let you go first, Alexis, because mine is long.
Empowerment for me as a woman, as a veteran, is to be able to make my own choices. I have been very blessed that my life post Air Force, and I don't even want to say post Air Force because I'm still very much a part of it. One of the things that we say is that we bleed blue. Once an airman, always an airman. And I've had the opportunity to serve as an airman big A as a civilian. I do still work for the Air Force Reserve to be exact. and just the empowerment to make my own decisions. So after I took the uniform off, I've had several job opportunities to further my career. I've moved all over the country. I've moved more as a civilian than I did as an airman in the Air Force. And that's without the Air Force, without that foundation, I don't know where I would be. I can't imagine what my life would have been had I not taken the career path that I did. One thing my mother always taught me was a college 18-year-old and a military, not just Air Force 18-year-old, are two very different people. And I'm just very thankful that I chose the path that I did. I matured faster. I learned a lot about life, things that people my age, even now, I'm almost 40 years old, may not have ever experienced. And so that's one thing that's very empowering to me. And I'm able to provide a life for my son that not many people can say, especially in this economy. Last month we went through the government shutdown, and that was, even though it was nice to have a little bit of a break, there's still uncertainty. And without this life that I've lived for myself, I wouldn't have been able to provide it for my son. So that's what's really enlightening and empowering for me.
So empowering for me, I will say that most empowering is when I made the choice to go back to school and get my master's degree. I learned a lot about myself in the Air Force. I dealt with a lot of discrimination, sexism, racism, being active duty. There weren't a lot of people, Black women, that were doing what I was doing in the Air Force as a security police. There wasn't. So by me doing the things that I did and giving 100% and diving in, I was promoted as senior and below the zone. If anybody's enlisted in the Air Force, they understand that because of my job. And all of my peers were white males. Well, not all of them. I would say 90% of my peers were white males. There were Black security police on the male security police on base. But the ones that worked where I worked were white males. And above them, I was promoted to senior and below the zone, which means I was in E4 early, 6 months early. I was able to put on E4 6 months early. I got selected, but had to go before a board. Empowering, I chose therapy. I chose counseling to be a clinical mental health counselor because I know, as a Black woman, I know the struggles that we have in this world. I know the struggles that Black men have in this world. And I know that we are often thought of as less than, believed to be less than, looked down upon, no matter what education you have. You can have a doctorate, you can have a couple of doctorates, and the person beside you can barely have a high school diploma, be Caucasian, and still feel like you're less than simply because of the color of your skin. I wanted to normalize counseling for Black people. I wanted to normalize counseling for people of color, which is why I decided to go specialize in trauma because, quite honestly, our overall experience was traumatic. Just sometimes day to day, it can be traumatic. And I wanted to normalize counseling for Black people. I wanted them to look at me and see that it's okay. I don't push it on people. I don't force it. But I do tell them that the old theory of what happened in this house stays in this house, and don't be putting people in our business. And I know when I was growing up, when somebody said something about, oh, you need to go see a psychiatrist, they said it was a shrink, first and foremost. And for Black people, it was, don't be telling them white people our business. And that is why we suffer in silence. That is why we deal with so many ailments, so many mental illnesses. And people don't like you to say mental illness. Depression is a mental illness. It's mental. If your blood pressure is high, you will take a blood pressure pill. If you have a cut, you will go to the ER and you will let them bandage you up. If you are dealing with anxiety, depression, it could be ADHD, it could be schizophrenia, it could be bipolar disorder, any of those things, those are mental, and it is still an illness, and it needs to be treated. And it should not be treated as you're crazy. I don't use those words. I don't use the word crazy. If somebody says, I know you think I'm crazy, Miss Bettina, and I say, you're not crazy. Sometimes our wires get a little bit twisted and turned in our brain, and it doesn't always mean medication. Sometimes it does mean talk therapy. Sometimes I can talk somebody through and help them see a different picture. Sometimes I can help them bring them from that childhood trauma that they're still living with today, and help them realize that they don't have to continue to be that trauma. One of my proudest moments in therapy is when I have Black men that choose me, because you go on Psychology Today and there's a profile of me on Psychology Today. And when a Black male chooses me, that brings me joy, because oftentimes I am told, and I had one client actually tell me after 6 sessions, his wife said, you need to go to a therapist. And he wanted to find a male, and he decided to find me. And he said, I picked you because I wanted to prove to my wife that a Black woman was just going to get on there and talk bad to me and tell me what I was doing wrong. He said, and you proved me wrong, and I can never be more grateful. That was one of my greatest moments, one of my proudest moments, because I'm not here. I understand the experience. I'm not saying that if you're going to go to therapy, it has to be somebody that looks like you. I'm not saying it has to be a male. It has to be a female. It has to be somebody Black. It does have to be somebody who can treat you with unconditional positive regard. It does have to be somebody who has cultural competence. And it doesn't necessarily mean cultural as in white and Black. It might mean Hispanic. It might mean Asian. I need to understand to do continuing education, and I do continuing education all the time. I'm constantly getting a certification. Somebody very close to me says, every time I look up, you getting a certification for something else. What you getting certified in now? So the empowerment is me being able to help other people pivot, other people shift, and to ignite their life. If I can do that, and being a therapist and bringing my experience as a veteran, as a woman veteran, as a Black woman veteran, if I can bring that experience, and I have veterans that are my clients. So in that, I understand that aspect of their lives. I have a better understanding than maybe a civilian who hasn't walked the walk. Doesn't mean I'm a better therapist than a civilian. It just means I have a better understanding of that particular walk. So that for me is empowering, to be able to help my clients, even when I'm going through my own stuff and I'm helping my clients. It's empowering for me, and to help other people feel empowered.
That's a beautiful thing.
I told you mine was going to go a while.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's all right.
So Frankie alluded to this earlier. So what message would you want other veterans, especially women, to hear from you this Veterans Day? And I would like each of you to take a turn here. Maybe Alexis, you can go first, but what message would you want other veterans to hear from you today?
That's a very good question. I would say, I guess this is my kind of running theme here. You can do hard things. You can do anything that you put your mind to.
I'm going to tag team, and I'm going to say to all veterans of all branches, of all races, creeds, colors, sexes, gender, I'm going to say to you, first and foremost, thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for the sacrifice of your families who came along with you on this journey. And make good and sure that you take care of yourselves by getting whatever benefits the Veterans Administration that you are entitled to. File your claims. The things that happen, the things you've seen, the things you've done in the military and the armed forces, it's unique. There are people on the street that haven't seen, done, or gone through any of some of what you've gone through. And a lot of that stuff is something that you should be filing a claim with the Veterans Administration for, because you should get a rating. You should be getting paid for that. The other thing is keep your head up. This country that we fight so hard for, and we fought so hard for, even though it doesn't always fight hard for us, you did that. And if you're still doing it, keep your head up. And I would encourage you to remember that one of the things that we are taught in the military is we're supposed to follow orders. However, we're not supposed to follow unlawful orders. We are not supposed to follow unlawful orders. And even if you're the commander-in-chief, or whomever is telling you to follow an unlawful order, you are literally not supposed to follow. in unlawful order. So I would encourage you to find the strength to stand strong, um, and to remember that that is actually one of the orders that you are supposed to follow, is to follow a lawful order. And the primary example, I'll give a brief example, is if you're my commander and you say to me, I want you to shoot her in the head, and I know she hasn't done anything, that's not a lawful order. I'm not shooting her in the head. So that's the best example I can give. If I am the National Guard and I'm supposed to be here to help in natural disasters and things like that, and you tell me to go on the streets of Chicago or go on the streets of some city and start grabbing people, I'm not ICE. That's not my job. It's not a lawful order. You have to find the strength to stand, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I can't remember who said it, but it's a fact.
That is a fact.
So
How can society better support veterans, whether men or women? How can society today better support our veterans?
start with asking the question. Open dialogue. There's nothing wrong with an open dialogue. If you don't understand something, ask a question. I know that there are often people who think they know what veterans do when they're serving. That's what we do. I can't tell you how many people who thought because I was in the Air Force I was a pilot. So you fly planes? You do not want me flying a plane. Trust and believe. This is not the one. Not me, right? But people assume because it's the Air Force, they assume that. So explain. Tell them the different things we do. Tell them what you do. I was a security police. Some people, there are people that are chefs or cooks or that are accounting people, that fix aircrafts. They're mechanics. They're jet engine mechanics. They do all kinds of stuff. Ask about the experience. And if there's something in the experience that the person doesn't want to tell, back away from it, because it may be some trauma involved. But just ask, and ask with intention. Ask and be interested and find out. And thank you for your for your service is great. Thank you for your sacrifice is probably a little more accurate.
So just a couple more things here. I want to ask you as if you could describe your service journey in one word, what would that be and why? I see the wheels turning. I see the wheels turning on both sides here.
I don't know if I could do it in one word, but I'm going to do it in two, if that's okay. And I'm just going to say life-changing. Oh, I say life-changing because I think it helped to shape the woman that I am today. I spoke earlier about all of the challenges that I overcame or am still overcoming or even have the motivation to overcome. And I just think about the person I would be had I not tackled those challenges. And I think a lot of that had to do with the decision to join the Air Force.
For me, the word would be blessing. It would be blessing because it allowed me to change the trajectory of my life. It allowed me to take care of my family, my mother. It allowed me to get an education. It allowed me to see the world, things that I would not have had an opportunity to see had I not enlisted in the Air Force, I believe. It allowed me to travel overseas, travel abroad. It opened my mind to learning more about people from different backgrounds, different faiths, different beliefs, races, creeds, colors, sexual orientations. It allowed me to do that. It was a blessing. And I often say when someone asks me about my Air Force career, there was not one day in that 20 years and 12 days that I ever said I hated the Air Force or that I didn't want to be in the Air Force. There were supervisors I didn't like, and there were bases I was stationed at that I would prefer to not to be stationed at. But there was never, ever a time that I said I didn't want to be in the Air Force. Not one day.
All right. So we're getting to the end here. But before we close, I would love to bring this conversation full circle, right? And to honor not just your service, but your growth, your bond, and your continued rise, right? So when you look at each other, and I'm talking to Alexis and Bettina, when you look at each other, mother and daughter, what do you see that makes you most proud?
I'll go first. Every year on Mother's Day, I'm sure I tell her in between, but I always make it a point to tell my mother that I wish I could be even an eighth of the woman that she is. And I could even take it less, a 16th, keep on going, 30 seconds. But my mother is a pillar of strength. She's a pillar of leadership. She's a pillar of um, dedication, not just to herself, but to others. She's the example, the epitome of any woman, of the woman that any woman would want to be. And no, I don't want to be my mother, but she's a great example of a woman, just the way that she moves in life, um, the values that she carries, the things in life that she's taught me, the example that she's been. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you followed in your mom's footsteps and joined the Air Force. In a sense, you could say that. I did make the decision myself, but she really was that example of how I could lead my life. I try to model a lot of things and decisions that I make from her because she's just it. She is that woman, you know? And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud to call her my mother. She's the first person I want to call when I wake up in the morning. I don't know if anybody talks to their mother as much as I talk to her. She probably is like, oh, she's calling me again. But I really do talk to her several times a day. I go to her for advice. She's just somebody to lean into. And so I'm just proud to call her my mother just for everything that she does, everything that she is. You all have gotten the opportunity to hear some of her life and career experience, and I just get to experience all of that plus being her daughter. So I've seen it all. So it's a huge blessing to call her my mother.
Okay, so there's no crying
That's
in
awesome.
podcast. Was unfair. That's nice. Yeah, I would have to say that she talks about who I am, but who I am is who I got from my own mother. So I am. It's okay. I am my mother's child, and when I look at who she has become from where she was or from whence she came, as they say, when I look at who she has become, how she has grown from a very quiet, introverted young child to a grown woman, like I said, seeing her as a leader when I went to basic training to watch her graduate, to her finding her voice even with me. I'm a very domineering person as far as, okay, this is what needs to be done. We're doing this. We're not playing the radio. We don't have time for shortcuts and this, that, and the other. And I halfway don't want to hear what you have to say because this is what I want to be done. That's all me. And I'm not proud of it because I still have work to do. We're all works in progress. But to watch her grow and be able to say to me, that's not my path, Mom. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that. This is my opinion. This is how I want to do it. It makes me really, really, really proud of her. And I really believe that the Air Force had a lot to do with her finding her voice. And it even means finding her voice with me. And now she totally has it. And even when she feels like I think she has to pause before she says something, I can see the look on her face. And I know how to pull back because you have to allow your children to be who they are supposed to be. And that has grown me up. Okay. This is so wrong.
So right.
It's so right, is what it is. Just the honor that you guys have for one another, the respect, the appreciation, the love. That's life. That's love. That's beautiful.
This is going to be one of your best podcasts because there's no crying in podcasts.
Them tears are gonna show up. But anyway, so if the younger version of you in uniform could see the woman that you have become today, what would she say?
In today's vernacular, you did that.
That's all right.
I don't think that 20 years ago I would have seen or I would have guessed that I would have evolved into the woman I am, and especially after what my mom just said. Yes, I've always been a person that's kind of in my shell, and just to see how much I've blossomed, and like she said, even with her, I don't want to get too much into it, but she opened the door to have a conversation. Um, for me to just really open up to her. And I did that. And so 20 years ago, that was not a possibility, at least not from my perspective. She's always had this policy. You can say anything you want to say to me as long as you say it respectfully. But I didn't trust that. And to this day, I do. Our relationship has grown. And I know that doesn't really have to do with the military, but or with the Air Force, but in uniform or out of uniform, like I said, you did that. I really blossomed into a woman that I never saw coming.
And a phenomenal mother.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, and a phenomenal mother. And so since she took my "you did that" phrase, because I promise you I was thinking that you did that, it would probably be something along the lines of "you go girl," or it would be "you are not to be played with when you put your mind to it. You are not to be played with."
It's good stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Frankie, I don't know about you, but this was an incredible conversation right here. This was fantastic. And you ladies really gave us more than what we bargained for. So I appreciate your support, appreciate your sacrifice, and just a big thank you for coming on here and sharing this space with Frankie and I, sharing your stories and giving our audience something that I truly believe that they can use, that they can relate to. So, what say you,
Appreciate you
Frankie?
having us.
Oh, absolutely.
And for you, Nooch, thank you for your sacrifice. And for you, Frankie, thank you so very much for having us and finding our story worthy of being talked about, and shared.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Talking with the two of you today just has shown just how spectacular both of you are and how people can benefit from hearing your stories, for being trailblazers, for being a mother-daughter duo, from the things that you've gone through, how they shaped you in the service of this country, the service of your families. You're just amazing. And I'm just so happy that you were here with us in this space today to share a little bit of that.
Thank you.
So another couple quick things. So Alexis, before we started this conversation, you were talking about a website or a YouTube channel that you have that you share some things with folks. And, Bettina, I know you have some things as well. Is there anything that we can share with our audience on how they can find and interact with you in the spaces that you have, or that you would like to share?
Sure. I do have a YouTube channel, and it's very diverse in the content that I post, from motherhood, makeup, and beauty and health, just kind of homemaking. It goes all over the place. So if you're interested in that type of content, you can find me on YouTube at VA, the number 4, life, all one word, VA for life. And I look forward to seeing you over there and interacting with you.
Yes, I am
Fantastic.
a part of an amazing podcast called the Say What, and that's WHAAT, Say What podcast. We are on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, Say What Podcast, and you can also find us on YouTube. We usually air on the second and fourth Saturday of the month live. Sometime we do a pre-recording, but it's for amazing women from different backgrounds, different. We have a minister. We're very faith-based. However, we talk about life. We talk about sports. We talk about incidents. We talk about current events. And we get our laughter on, because I have a segment called What the Fudge, and it's usually a picture of something that makes you say, what the fudge? So we can be found once again on the Say What, WHAAT, say SAYWHAAT podcast. We are on Facebook, and we are also on YouTube.
Frankie, tell the people where they can find us.
Well, you can find the PSI Effect podcast on just about every podcast distribution platform out there: Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio. If you just go to the PSI website, that is thisispsipod.com, and click on the episodes link, you'll see all the different places where you can pick up the audio version of the podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. If you want to see what we look like and see the shenanigans we get into, you can go to YouTube and find us at This Is PSI Pod on YouTube.
And that is also our social media handle for Instagram, on Facebook, as well as TikTok. You can find us in just about all those places. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Fantastic. So you all have a great deal of opportunity here to go look at the Say What podcast, to go look at VA for Life on YouTube, and of course the PSI Effect podcast. Go there, like, subscribe, follow, all of those good things that you do on the social media. And with that brings us to the end. Again, thank you. And to all of our listeners, especially to our veterans, remember that setbacks are temporary, but comebacks, they are truly legendary. And until next time, go be brave and rise on purpose.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the PSI Effect podcast. This show doesn't happen without you, and you can connect with us via Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit our website at thisispsipod.com and find us on YouTube and social media at This Is PSI Pod. That's at This Is PSI Pod. Until next time, remember, be brave and rise on purpose.